Nightmare Luffy was a foreshadowing. Can't do it with a straight face. Ooh, I do not have high hopes for the like to dislike ratio for this video. Well, let's jump into it. The Long Ring Longland arc might be the most hated arc in One Piece, but I don't think it's as bad as people remember, and there are some important parts of it. First and most importantly, this is when Chopper had his first taste of cotton candy. Absolutely critical to the story. We wouldn't have had Cotton Candy Lover Chopper without this arc. And I believe this must have been when the picture that would later be used for his wanted poster was taken. Secondly, we have Afro Luffy. Nightmare Luffy was clearly foreshadowing Gear 4th, and Afro Luffy was obviously foreshadowing Gear 5th. That also leads into the first minor point, giving Luffy a reason to entrust his hat to Usopp, symbolizing his bond with Usopp before leaving the crew. Speaking of the hat, the arc also introduced the whole concept of the Davy Back fight, which may or may not be the way the minor plot point that is the Straw Hat may end up being resolved. It feels like there should be some competition between the Red Hair and Straw Hat pirates, and a Davy Back fight for the Straw Hat would make perfect sense without needing any real hostility between the two crews. You could end up having Shanks being the big bad villain, pulling the strings from behind the scenes all along, but that doesn't really feel like the way that Oda's gonna end up taking it. It's just way too cliched and kind of a lazy way out at this point, I think. Another minor thing, it also introduced the first Admiral, showing Luffy and the others that they need to become much stronger and really set things up for the little thing involving Robin in the next arc or two, depending on how you divide those arcs. Jokes aside though, there are also other actual minor points, such as world building and the parallels to our own world that Oda likes to throw in. I believe there are a few archipelagos in our world where nomads migrate between islands when a land bridge forms on a fairly regular basis. The big reason that people hate on this arc, myself included, is that it seems like it's just so long. But looking at it, excluding filler, it's not all that long. The anime was definitely longer than it needed to be, but the entirety of the arc was only 19 chapters, spanning chapters 303 to 322, with the Davy Back fight itself not starting until chapter 306, and Luffy beating Foxy in chapter 317. Could it have been shorter? Potentially, but it would kind of feel weird if the only mention of a Davy Back fight was a little one-chapter clash before it ends up being a massive climax of the series. Realistically speaking, it's just one of those intermission arcs that's between each of the major arcs and sagas. It's generally just a lighthearted affair that sneaks in some lore dumps and exposition. It may even be the first that is generally considered its own arc, although there were mini versions of these earlier, like the whole thing with Gaimon, the stuff at Logtown that Oda ended up needing to cut to get to the Grand Line on chapter 100, although Reverse Mountain kind of takes that role as well. Then there's the Alabasta wrap-up and the whole Salvager thing, if not the entirety of Jaya before Skypiea. This was the one post-Skypiea, then Enies Lobby had post-Enies Lobby. Thriller Bark was then followed by them trying to figure out how to get to Fishman Island, as well as the whole Handsome Squidward thing. Amazon Lily could probably be seen as another. The post-war arc and Return to Sabaody. Fishman Island also had what could be considered its own wrap-up mini-arc. There was some minor stuff between Punk Hazard and Dressrosa, then the standard Celebration mini-arc after that, and Zoe could probably be mostly considered an intermission arc, then Levelly after Whole Cake, and Spoilers after Wano. Was the arc really long and boring, or was it just Oda's masterful writing making you think that a fairly short arc that had a surprising amount packed into it was long and boring to reflect the fact that it included a bunch of long things, the slow fruit, and introducing lazy justice? That's a joke, by the way. Don't get mad at me. I don't know how to disappear for this one. So I originally planned to say that every major arc or saga had a sort of intermission after it, except Sky Island. Then I checked to make sure it didn't have one. Oops.